The focus of this video is on the nature of free will. And there are a whole lot of people, spiritual people, that discuss the concept of free will, religious people, philosophers, etc., and they find it, well, nobody has actually come up with a conclusive yes or no. A lot of people lean on the fact that no, there is no such thing as free will. Everything is determined prior to this reality. And then there's others that say free will. But those that say that there is free will have absolutely no way of explaining it in a logical way that makes sense to any person with a brain in their head. So I'm going to tackle that. Yes, indeed, there is free will. That is without a question for me. Let me explain. The problem with free will, or the problem with trying to explain it, is that people think about the human body, they think about the universe, and etc. Well, that does not have free will, because anything that is created does not have free will. So, because you cannot create free will, it's not possible. In fact, it's impossible to create free will. God cannot create free will. So then you get down to, okay, well, if God cannot create free will, then what am I? Well, the I that I'm talking about, which is not this physical body, not the spirit or anything else, the I that I'm speaking about is an uncreated thing that is eternal, okay? And it is the epitome of free will. You could say, I always use the word the essence of whatever it is that I am. Whatever that essence is, it can be referred to as awareness, but awareness is not an initial reality. Awareness only takes place when there's something to be aware of. And the original essence of what you are is the nature of free will. Now, you can sit in a stasis of not making a choice for eternity. Now, I know we can't use the word eternity when we're dealing with the concept of no time, but we don't have a way of really explaining that sort of thing. But nevertheless, when you accept the light of God, when it occurred, that was the first instance where exercising the right of what you are, which is free will, came into play. You could have chose not to accept the light of God and continue to be a non-existent awareness, which is essentially unaware. But once you made your first choice, then you became aware. And the more things that are added, you become more and more aware. Now, the things that you add, God actually creates. So, the light of God, God created the light. God created the universe. Whatever it is that God created does not have free will. It is predestined to fill its course of time. Physical matter, whatever it is that God created, that has a predetermined lifespan, and then it returns to God. It does not have free will. For instance, if we play the role of God in the same way, if I build something out of wood, now I didn't make the wood, but I fashioned the wood into something, it does not have free will. It is an inanimate object that I built, and it has to run the course of the predetermination of what it is that I built. And over the course of 100 years or 500 years, whatever the case may be, it'll deteriorate and go back to its original source material, but it doesn't have consciousness and it doesn't have free will. It has to do what I tell it to do or what I fashion it to do. In the same way, if God were to create us, then in fact, yes, we would not have free will. We would be a created thing, but we are not a created thing. When I say we, I'm speaking of the essence. If you go back and back and back and back, you get to the essence of what you are is identical to the essence of what God is. That does not mean you and God are the same essences. That's a good word. The nature of Advaita, Vedanta, or Advaita is trying to express or explain that, but people have misunderstood it for thousands of years, and they just call that non-duality because it seems to me they're very simple-minded to come up with that conclusion. Nevertheless, that's what most people do. Now, there's another concept that is well known throughout Christianity, and it's also well known in a lot of different religions and faiths throughout the world, and that is that at one particular time before this reality existed, they say that 1/3 of the spirits or essences or whatever you want to call them, they say fell away or followed Lucifer or the devil or whatever you want to call it. But that's not really true. In fact, it is true, but it's the opposite. I believe that it actually 2/3 followed Lucifer and only 1/3 followed God. Now here's the reason I think that. Because it's well known throughout the world, they denote Satan as the 666. Okay, well, that's 2/3. 666 is 2/3. And so the master of the 2/3 would be Lucifer. And they live here on this planet, just alongside the 1/3. Every 3 children that are born, proportionately, 2 of them followed Lucifer before they were ever born, and 1 of them followed God before they were born. But following doesn't mean any of them ever had a concrete witness or a concrete evidence that one way or the other is true. And so consequently, now we're on this realm, we're in this life experience, and we're going through the exact same damn thing. And so consequently, that's why we have philosophers, we have doctors of philosophy and spirituality, very, very intelligent people that make a lot of books that they publish, and they go on speaking tours throughout the world and explain. I know I'm not going to name names because that's not something it's frowned upon. But be that as it may, there are lots of people that go around the world teaching that free will is a myth, that the life of Jesus is a myth, a lot of different things like that. And they use philosophy, they use science, they use everything to support their notion that we are a product of the universe, and we develop along with the universe, and that if there's a God, they don't know anything about it, and they don't speak anything about God. Well, that's the exact same those are the same philosophies used by the 2/3 before they were ever born here. Now, I am not going to go out there and say, well, the 2/3 are the ones that are following Lucifer and they're going to burn in hell for all eternity. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying we all live our existence, our lives, and some of us have this this burning, if you will, that there is a God, and that burning is so powerful in us that we kneel in prayer to God, regardless of what intellectuals may think of us. We don't give a damn that we are called foolish or this or that or whatever. It doesn't hurt us. We don't care. And they think it's foolish to do that sort of thing. However, if you do that for 30, 40 years or whatever the case may be, things happen and take place that remove the concept of faith and replace it with pure knowledge. Well, you're not going to get that pure knowledge if you are one of the 2/3 and you don't exercise that ability in you to go vertical directly to God. Going lateral is the nature of this world. When you study the sciences and the philosophies and you do all of these things without importuning this deity that created reality, what you're going to do is you're just going to muddle yourself in the incredibly complex level or the universe. It's so complex that you're never, ever, ever going to get your way out of it. But you have to go vertical, as I've said before, to get this information. Well, and it requires faith. There is no other way. You cannot think your way to understanding God. You cannot use philosophy, reasoning. You cannot use your doctorate degrees to bang on the door of God and have him take recognition of you. This is never, ever going to happen. And I do mean never, ever. And so you're never going to understand the nature of free will if you do not go vertical. Free will, again, is the nature of your essence. And it is not contained in this physical reality or this physical universe. So that's why it becomes so confusing to these people, because they are running lateral. They're not going vertical. They're staying lateral. Enlightenment, the concept of enlightenment is vertical. It is removing yourself or getting out of this level playing field, if you will, and digging deeper into the level playing field by trying to understand the sciences and the nature of science and philosophy and all these things. That's not going vertical. That's just acquiring more parallel information, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm just saying that's great for a while, if you will. But if you actually want to know how to prove to yourself the concept of free will, you have to go vertical. You cannot get it on this. I'm rehashing it too much. I know that, and I'm sorry for that. Anyways, I hope you can appreciate what I'm talking about. To reiterate, yes, we do have free will. But when I say we, I'm not talking of the physical body. I'm not talking of the spirit. I'm not talking about, they say, well, I have free will because I can raise my right arm. Okay, maybe that's not free will. But free will has to do with whether or not you choose to exercise faith, for instance. If you don't recognize the concept of faith and you do not utilize it to understand the things of God, well, you are simply not using your free will to do something. And the nature of those that chose God exercise that concept of faith. And if you think faith is something beneath you, like it's a childish thing, okay, that's your prerogative to do that. Go ahead and study your philosophies. Go ahead and study get your doctorate degrees at your universities and college. Go write your books and make all kinds of seminars and this and that and everything else. But you're never going to understand even the most simple thing of God because you're not exercising your faith. Instead, you look down upon it. And the reason you look down upon it is because the leader of the two-thirds represses faith, belittles it, makes it seem like it's a childish thing to do, and so you feel embarrassed when you go, oh, well, I have faith in God. Oh, well, that seems embarrassing, so, okay, well, I'm not going to exercise my faith, is the belief of intellectuals, if you will. But you know what? If you do not taste wine, you don't become a wine connoisseur. You don't understand the different flavors, this, that, and everything else. And instead, the first time you drink it, you spit it out and you choke and everything. Because you did not exercise the faith that there's something there that the connoisseurs recognize. Does that make sense? I mean, you can bring it down to a cigar, for God's sakes. If I were to smoke a cigar, I would choke and hack because I've never smoked in my entire life. Other than when I was a teenager, I tried it a couple of times and it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. So I never did smoke, but I know that I choked and hacked. But at the same time, I have faith that there are extremely fine quality cigars out there. I have faith that the people that do that recognize the difference between a horrible cigar and a really good cigar. I'm not interested in it. Nevertheless, I have faith that there are good cigars. Same holds true with wine. I didn't drink wine for most of my life, and then I started drinking it and I tested it. And it eventually, after several years, it's like, oh, wow, that is a good quality wine. Faith in God is the exact same thing. If you do not exercise your faith, and when I say exercise your faith, that means you actually have to do the things that requires faith. You actually have to get on your knees and pray to this imaginary God that you don't think exists. You have to do all these things for years and years and years and years before anything starts to manifest to you. And after 6 months or a year or 3 years, most people throw in the towel and go, this is bullshit. There's no such thing as God. Well, I'm here to tell you, I've been doing it for well over 50 years, and I'm telling you, there is something to it. And I know there's something to it because I have experienced it. And it's way more powerful than the spiritual enlightenment that Buddha had, because I've had that same enlightenment too, and it is incredibly powerful. But the power that comes from exercising your faith in God is much greater than the enlightenment that comes with exercising the faith that in fact enlightenment exists. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.